All right. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Caitlin Conover, and I am the Assistant Director of Launch Greensboro. For those of you who are just getting to know our organization, and this is my tag keeper who is trying to participate here too. But for those of you who are just getting introduced to Launch Greensboro and our organization, we are the entrepreneurial arm of the Greensboro Chamber of Commerce. And we serve and support entrepreneurs and businesses in the Greensboro Triad area by providing support with our programs, mentorship, and access to capital. And we do that through a variety of ways, including our Launch Lab 101 and Launch Lab Growth programs, our launch camps, our sustained cohort support, our Capital Connects pitch event that we host each year. I see some folks that pitched at Capital Connects this spring, in fact, on this call. And we also have our first launch capital fund pre-seed stage fund. And today I'm really excited to be partnering up with Jenny Bowen Olson. She, in fact, is one of our sustained cohort members. So that means she has completed our Launch Lab Growth Accelerator program. So we know Jenny very well. She is the founder and president of Brand Elements Coaching, and today she'll be sharing 5 easy steps you can take right now to up your social media game, which is, I'm very excited to hear what she has to say. I know it's a common thread or a common theme in many conversations that I have with entrepreneurs or other business owners of how we can utilize this amazing tool to get our names out there, our brands out there. So Jenny, excited to get started. So I'll turn it over to you now.
Excellent. Thanks, Caitlin, Luann, and I see some familiar faces on Zoom today. So I'm excited for your support. I'm excited to share. I'm going to share how to up your social media game in 5 easy steps, as Caitlin alluded to. And we're going to focus in on LinkedIn and on Instagram specifically. The first half is going to be general tips you can use, and then we're going to have an application period at the end where I'm going to do a live LinkedIn critique for one lucky participant. So let's go ahead and get started. To begin with, I would love to see the caliber of your social media skills in the room today. In chat, I'd love for you to leave a 1 to 10 on how you feel about using social media. 1 being a what's a tweet, 10 being a TikTok is my BFF. So let's just kind of set the stage. Who's in the room? How do you feel about social media? All right, we've got a 10. We've got some 6s and 7s. This is great. Some other 10s, some 4s. Love this. We got a 3, some 5s through a 4. Yeah, this is super. You all will have some things to share with me and your fellow participants today. So I will be stopping at slides and asking for your insights. So especially those of you all who love that TikTok, please, share your insights so that we can learn from one another today. All right, so continuing on, the top 5 social media tricks we're going to focus in on today are what you see here on the screen. Post often, use visuals, tell your why, ask a question, and leverage hashtags. These are applicable across the social sites. And as I mentioned, we're going to hone in on Instagram and LinkedIn specifically today. But you could definitely apply these to TikTok, to Facebook, to Twitter, and to any others that are kind of new and upcoming sites, because social media is continuously evolving. All right, so number 1, post often. What I have here is the shelf life for a post on LinkedIn. That's 24 hours. And for Instagram, which is 21 hours. So what that means is that if you post on these sites, you can typically post once a day, and that's about all you need to do. With Instagram, you could even do 2 to 3 times a week. If somebody sees your post, those are usually very visually compelling. They can click through and then see all of your other content. So your posts on Instagram tend to have a really long shelf life because of that. With LinkedIn, it's that feed. It's going to get covered up with other people's content throughout the day. And so we recommend, if you really want to have a strong presence on LinkedIn, that you publish daily. If you're just kind of like, I just want to be on LinkedIn, but I don't want this to be my whole world, once a week, 2 to 3 times a week is also good. And that post is going to be pretty visible for that entire day that you post. So it's kind of up to you. I go to market on LinkedIn. I get clients that way. So I tend to post every day. But what I tell my clients is if they just want to try it once a week, that's a good way to start. See what works, experiment a little bit, up it to 2 to 3 times if you feel like it. With LinkedIn specifically, I suggest that if you want to post content here, you do it first thing in the morning. With LinkedIn, this is considered a professional social media platform. So it's a little legit for you to use it at work. A lot of you all are entrepreneurs. So your work is however you want to form your work day. If you're doing your entrepreneurial work as a side hustle, you may be in an office, you may be at home doing something else for a full-time employer. So if you work in the morning with LinkedIn, you've got an entire day to build up engagement with that post. So those of us on the East Coast, we're particularly lucky. We get up early, we can post 8 at 9 in the morning, and then we have all the way through Pacific end of day closure. So we have lots of time to gain engagement with our posts. If you're located somewhere else in the country, then you might want to get up a little earlier or use a scheduler tool like Hootsuite. Canva also has one. So you can schedule those to post while you're still sleeping, and then you're able to build in that longer amount of time for engagement with your post. So keep that in mind with LinkedIn. Instagram, you can kind of post whenever you want because it is such a visual medium. People are just kind of checking it as they have time. So I want to pause there and ask if there are any questions around posting, specifically a schedule with posting. You can chat, you come off mute for a second and just add your tips of what works. Or if you have a question, I'm happy to put that to the group or answer it if I have the answer.
Jenny, I have a question around posting. When you say post often, is there like a good number to set as your goal, or is there like a quantity versus quality dynamic that you should consider? What would you recommend there?
Yeah, it almost depends on your overall goal. So I post every day because I want the visibility. I try to make the content useful to my followers so that they'll want to come back to my profile on LinkedIn specifically to see what else I've shared, to see what I do, who I am, so I can potentially gain clients that way. So I will share other people's content. I will share articles that I've found with maybe a quote that I'm featuring. I will write a little story, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. And for me, because it's a daily thing, I'm trying to get out there so that people say, oh, there she is again. There she is again. So there's that consistency, so they know they can trust that I'm out there every day if they like what I have to share. So I'm going after a thought leadership play. Caitlin, with you, if you're promoting Launch Greensboro, it may be that you're promoting something twice a week. One time it could be promoting one of your programs. Another time that week, it could be just sharing a resource for entrepreneurs. So it's not a sales focus every post that you do, but there's other content there too. So you kind of think about your overall goal, and that plays into how often you want to share that, if that helps.
That's great. And I'll also add, we got a couple messages in the chat. Jeff Livesay said, we switched from Hootsuite to Buffer for scheduling posts. Buffer is faster / better / cheaper, and also just added TikTok. Julianne Cooper added, I've heard comments and engagement help with promoting your posts. Is that true? Or I'm trying to pick up the question there, but that was a comment she made.
Yes. So I love, Jeff, your comment about Buffer. I was not familiar about that social scheduling site. Love that it's faster, better, cheaper. So everybody go out and check out Buffer. I've made a note for that for myself. Thank you for sharing that. Julianne, yes. What you want to do when you post, if somebody comments, you want to go back and comment too. That's what we call social care. So you're building engagement because you're going back and you're checking if somebody likes your content, you're building a relationship with them. So you definitely want to respond if they respond to you. You can also tag people with the @ symbol in both Instagram and LinkedIn so that they get an alert that you have tagged them in that post or tag them in a comment to also encourage that interaction. So that's the beauty of, especially with LinkedIn, posting first thing in the morning. You've got all day to build that engagement and respond to folks, and then encourage them to talk to you in return. So it does build that overall conversation. So I love that you brought that up.
Awesome. And we have one more question from Sydney. She knows that on Facebook, you can schedule posts ahead of time. Do you know if LinkedIn has a similar tool where you can schedule that post, or is that more of a manual as you need to post kind of setup?
Yeah, Sydney, great point. With Facebook, you can connect your Instagram account or vice versa and post both of those places with their scheduling tool that's internal to that site. LinkedIn does not have that at this point. So it's manual, or it's using Hootsuite or Buffer, Canva, one of those other vendors that you can just kind of search online for social schedulers, and it'll offer you a couple options there too. So thank you for asking that. Okay, moving on. Use visuals. This is an organization that I follow on Instagram. It's a architecture site. And this picture specifically, let's see if I can read this thing. This got 2,000 likes and says, "Do what we want Saturday. Nothing more adorable than a house to make us smile." So they post pictures of houses. I find this fun to look at. This is me personally. There's lots on Instagram, lots of accounts you can follow, but it's a lovely visual. So it catches people's eye, and then you can read the content to kind of find that emotional hook. With LinkedIn, you can also use visuals there. So this is one. He's telling a story about his dog that he bought from a shelter. And this is interesting. One of the trends we're seeing with LinkedIn, we know that Instagram is very visual. With LinkedIn, it tended to be very heavy text only posts. We're now moving to sharing of articles, which has a picture usually associated with it, people sharing videos. And this one is a specific picture that's related to his non-work self. With the pandemic, we've had this fall of the veil between work and life. And so people are sharing more of what's going on behind the scenes with their lives. And here you have pictures of dogs. Caitlin, your cat was in the video a few minutes ago, which was awesome. You know, people would say hashtag work buddy. And so we're seeing more of this personal connection from Instagram show up on LinkedIn, and it gets results. He's telling a story here, opening up and being a little vulnerable by showing this imagery in addition to his story. So other things you can do, you can take a photo with some of the other sites and put music to it and effects. You can see that on TikTok a lot. You can do that on stories with Instagram. So you can take a static image and kind of turn it into a little mini video of sorts. You can use actual video. On LinkedIn, your headshot, so Hamashu's, you can see his picture right here. There's a little icon where you can turn that into a video. So it could be a little short introductory video. So LinkedIn, you're starting to see more pictures and videos and visuals, because people do, as they're scrolling, catches their eye in the midst of a sea of text-only posts. So something to keep in mind. All right, questions and comments in the chat about this.
So Stephanie asked Jenny that there's some people who tend to think of LinkedIn more as a professional platform and complain when people tend to skew more personal with their posts. What's your opinion on personal versus totally 100% professional or business related posts on that platform?
Yeah, for sure. I think you're always going to have folks who are like, this should be on Facebook. Clients of mine who have their birthday show up on LinkedIn, I'll often ask them to take that off. It's a privacy measure, because that's one way to get into so many accounts these days is your birthday. And that tends to be something that's celebrated on Facebook. Everybody's like, oh, I saw it's your birthday. Woo! LinkedIn, it's a little it's a little strange. And a lot of people, you probably don't know that you even have your birthday on LinkedIn. So I would check that from that personal standpoint. We're seeing a lot more political posts on LinkedIn. Lots of rulings these days. People have thoughts on that. Organizations are reaching out and talking about how they are being supportive of their employees in different ways. So there's very much a blurry line between work and home at this point. And we're seeing that with LinkedIn. So we're kind of at a crossroads. I think you're going to see more personal. When I tend to do that, I try to take the content and connect it back to a professional angle. So I've got an example in here that I'll show you in a minute of somebody who beautifully did that. And it's about, hey, this is what's happening in my life. And the implication is, managers, are you thinking about this? Because it could be impacting your employees too. So if you can kind of, it's a fine line, and there's a little nuance to it and how you tell that story. Somebody says, how do you recommend creating videos? I've used Adobe Spark, has a lot of limitations. Yeah, Julianne, I'm not a graphic design person. So with videos, I just use my iPhone. There's a trend because of the social revolution we've been going through about the amateur essentially competing with pros. So you can get away very nicely with an iPhone video. It's kind of, they're visually stunning these days, but even if it has a little bit of an amateurish feel to it, it makes it feel more vulnerable and more real. So it's like, this really is a behind the scenes look at my life. I'm letting you into kind of an authentic view of who I am. So you can get away with that too. Let's see. Lauren said, posts that straddle the line of professional and personal get a lot of traction. For example, celebrating a coworker's professional achievement, things that put a personal touch, like if a client sends a gift. Yeah, absolutely. So I think that we're going to see a lot more of that. That's a good example. Jeff's asking, one of our challenges with Instagram is coming up with imagery that we can use without resorting to cheesy stock imagery, expensive image licensing. I think that's great. That's a great question, Jeff. So I run a blog on the side and I do use stock imagery. I will also use some of my own images. So I kind of have like a look and feel I'm going for when I am looking at stock imagery. And if it fits with that brand look, I feel okay about it. So, and you may probably have already done this, but going back and just kind of having that lens, does this stock image fit with our brand? And yes, okay, we can use it. No, it's feeling a little cheesy or it just feels a little disconnected. You probably don't want to use that. That could be an opportunity for you opening up some behind the scenes photography. And I'm not really sure what your goal is, but it could be, hey, today we just decided we were going to take pictures around the organization and meet so-and-so. And that's an image that is very, it doesn't come across as needing to be professional because it's like, hey, it's in the moment. So that can be kind of a way to just mix it up just a little bit, if that's helpful. Kind of go backwards here. New message from Caitlin. Use Unsplash. Yeah, Unsplash is great. I'll add a couple others that I depend on. Pexels, Pixabay, I'm probably spelling that wrong. Those are two others that are great sites that don't tend to have, they also have cheesy imagery, but then they have a lot that you could say, yeah, I think that would work with my brand. So good questions. This is a great discussion. All right, so moving on, tell your why. Okay, so this is at Charlotte's house. She's an influencer on Instagram. This got 3,000 likes. This whole story, she's got this beautiful image, gorgeous kitchen. She's selling paint. She's selling Benjamin Moore Summer's Day green paint. And you don't really know that when you read her story here. So she talks about lessons from this project, flexibility, keep an open mind, get more paint samples than you think you need. She is being vulnerable to a certain extent, but really we need to remember and think critically as we look through things on Instagram. These are influencers trying to sell. This is their business. As many of you all probably use Instagram in the same way. So the way she does that is she tries to create a connection with the audience. So this is about storytelling. What can you do to put content out there that is of use to your readers, to your viewers, to your followers? And so she can just sell paint, or she can put it in an angle here as a thought leader of things to think about if you're going to go about this project. So she's creating content that's of use in an emotionally compelling way so that people will want to keep following her to see what she has to say about other DUI things. Brene Brown will talk about we need to be vulnerable in order to build relationships with others. And so this is sort of like an inauthentic authenticity where you get to control how vulnerable you are on social, but you want to add just a little bit of yourself so that people feel that connection and want to come back for more of your content, which then helps for you all to build leads, to build relationships, and to build sales. You can also do this on LinkedIn. So this is Portia Mount. She's a local CMO. This is an opportunity where she kind of walked that line between personal and political. This came out when shooting occurred in Buffalo. It's terrible. She starts out, there's no imagery here. This is all her story, all her why. She talks about how that impacted her. She tells a family story, and then she ends by connecting all of these things back to the importance of leadership. And she does this beautifully. So it's just very nuanced. She shared a little bit of herself, but she's also kept it in that professional space. So she's telling her why this impacts her as an individual, as a person. And then she's saying, and it also impacts the larger world and my work community specifically. So she's kind of building a couple different touch points to connect with her audience. So this one is just lovely the way she did that. This is a friend of mine, Paula. She's also local. She is sharing an article from somebody else on LinkedIn. And she told her why here. She just hit that share button. It gives her an image because there's an image connected with the article. She hit the share button and all she did was write this 2-line little sentence. We could all use a little glimmer this week. And then she's got a quote from the article. A little joy and some relaxation can reduce your emotional distress. So she's alerting her followers of an article and giving them a little taste of that article to entice them to want to read it. She's sharing information to build that relationship with them. So they'll see her as a resource of someone that they can go to and depend on for just compelling content to help them get through the day. And this was pretty easy. This is like a shortcut way to tell your why on LinkedIn. It's sharing other people's content, writing a little 1 line about why you're sharing it. Copying, pasting a quote from an article is another way to do that. It's kind of a shortcut. You don't have to come up with content on your own. And then you just stay in the conversation. And as we already talked about, you respond if people comment. So you keep that engagement going. So let's pause for a second, see what questions you all have about telling those stories. Does anybody have an example of one that worked really well for them that they were like, oh, that was surprising. I need to do that again. That worked. All right. So if we move on, number 4, ask a question. With this really does play into that engagement piece because especially with Facebook, which we aren't focusing on, Facebook, if you don't get any engagement within the first 5 hours that you post, that post disappears. They will hide it from everyone's newsfeed. It stays on yours, but no one's going to engage with it. So asking those questions to entice people to engage with your post on LinkedIn, also on Instagram, responding to those is a great way to kind of trick the system so that it will say, hey, I'm relevant. People think my content's relevant. Show it to more people that follow me. All right, so I'm going to show 2 examples for me. These are from LinkedIn. I've got a question here right now, and then I've told my why story here. How are you saying no these days? I just asked this question. And then I gave my why. I texted a friend to request her services the other day. Here's how she said no. I'm all out of yeses for right now. Let's reconnect on this in 3 months. Y'all, she said no to me by saying yes. And that kind of blew my mind. So I shared it with people because I was like, this is an amazing strategy. But I started out with a question. I got 17 comments, almost 3,000 views of this thing. People were like, what? And they shared their own stories. It was a very engaging conversation. It doesn't really have anything to do with the fact that I'm a career strategist or a coach or a resume writer or nonprofit consultant. It has nothing to do with that, but it's me engaging with people who follow me, who I love and want to have a relationship with, because I'm trying to build a longer term sales funnel, but also trying to stay relevant in the platform. And I want people to come to me for insights. So thinking about how you can ask a question to help drive engagement. This is one way to do that. Here's another one where I was complaining about when Zoom changed their structure on meeting time and got rid of their time frame for one-on-one calls from a free standpoint. They started charging. And so I mentioned that. I also tagged Zoom in it. And then I asked 2 questions. What's everyone doing these days? What are you using? This thing had 32 comments. It had, see down here, 27,000 views. It blew up. And look how short it is. And there's no visual with it. What was fascinating with this is that people offered their own suggestions, but product managers of the competitive products also weighed in. So it was an opportunity for them. They were searching to see what people think about Zoom. So they're using LinkedIn as a tool to look for opportunities to sell. They saw that I was talking about Zoom and they weighed in on that in the comment section. So I got a lot of engagement, and I learned about 5 other platforms that are excellent conference tools these days that I had never heard of. So that was kind of a fascinating view into what can happen just by asking a question on LinkedIn. All right, so we've got some things in chat real quick. Can you talk about ways to manage negative comments? Stephanie's asking. Yeah, there's a couple ways. You can call in your posse and say, hey, can you check my LinkedIn profile? We've got a crazy comment. Can you offer another perspective? So I use this strategy across social platforms. That's one option. You can call them out if you want to. If it's yours personally, you don't have to invite that conversation in. You can delete it. If you are a brand manager for an organization, you don't want to be seen as somebody who's necessarily censoring discussion. So that's a PR discussion that you want to have and decide as an organization how you want to approach those. You could also respond with, hey, thank you for weighing in. I hadn't thought about that point. Or, hi, sounds like you have some thoughts on this. I'd love to take this conversation offline. Do you mind direct messaging me? Maybe we can set up a time to talk. So you're kind of, in that scenario, you're offering them an opportunity to connect with you on a deeper level, and they may take you up on it, or they may not. Posting polls on LinkedIn is a good way to get interaction. Lauren, I love this. She continues to write, people love to give their opinions. Following up later with articles that are a response to the winning choice is a good way to keep that interest too. It's brilliant. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, y'all, we're tracking. We've got another comment. Cynthia says, having never yet posted as an illustrator, better to start posting one at a time or post a number of illustrations to create a body of work to view? Yeah, that's a great question. As a blogger, I will post a lot of things, and then it'll take me a while to decide whether I'm going to promote them, because I want there to be a book of content. So if they find one post interesting, they can continue to stay in my site for a while and read this other content. So I love that. Also, you have to start somewhere. So when people haven't really seen your content, if you just kind of put it out there and see how a few people respond, eventually the audience will grow, and you can build off of their feedback from those first followers to see what is really engaging, what works well. Yeah, I think you can just kind of experiment with that. I wouldn't put them all out. If you're posting, I would only do one at a time and spread them out. But you might have it refer back to a website or something else where you've got a good amount of a portfolio for people to really explore if they do contact with you. All right. Any other comments? Thanks, Sydney, for being here. I appreciate your message. All right, moving right along, leverage hashtags. All right, this is Appalachian Trail on Instagram. You can see they have a hashtag in their original comment up here, which is literally a question. So there's two. Kind of looking at Lauren's option of the poll on LinkedIn. He's using a fill in the blank here. Fill in the blank, I've hiked on the Appalachian Trail in blank states. And he follows up with another question. Which one was your favorite and why? And then people are down here, they're responding in kind. But you can see he's got a hashtag Appalachian Trail up in the original content. Then he's got two more, Sunday Fun Day and Explorer Trail. And then there's this space here before he has this whole block of hashtags. With Instagram, you want about 9 to 11 hashtags. And you want to spread it out from your content. So, because otherwise, if you put all of these hashtags, it makes that content hard to read. And people browse very quickly online these days. So they want to be able to absorb your content. And then, because of the way the systems are set up, you need those hashtags so other people can find your content. The hashtags make your content searchable. And this is across the social sites. And with Instagram, it's okay to have 9 to 11. That's just kind of what we've decided. So you can think of as many as you want related to this picture that you've got or whatever you're trying to promote. And then people who are searching on Get Outside, if they type that into Instagram, this post is going to show up. You might gain some new followers. With LinkedIn, this is a little different. So this is Philip. He is a local brand strategist. He's telling his why. He's got this great story about Henry Fonda. The whole purpose at the bottom says, being nervous is being human, keep pushing forward. So this lovely text only post. And then he has 3 hashtags. That doesn't look like the Instagram one that had, that block of them up to 11. With LinkedIn, you want about 3. Because that's not the purpose of LinkedIn. It's not to try to showcase all of those hashtags. The purpose is to create relationship based on that story. But the way LinkedIn curates content, again, similar to Instagram, it's based on these hashtags. So if somebody looked at brand strategy, Philip's post is going to show up. They may be enticed by this story, this why that he shared, want to click over to his profile, and then they discover him, follow him. Who knows where that could lead? So you can have up to 5 on LinkedIn. If you have more than that, it starts to look a little, I don't know, people are just kind of like, that's too many hashtags because they're blue. They're blue, they're bold, they jump off the page, your eye goes to them. And you want the eye to be associated with the content or the visual you're sharing, not the hashtags necessarily, if that makes sense. Any questions there about hashtags? Okay, so we have sped through this. Yeah. Yes.
I have one quick question. So
Yes.
this is something I'm generally aware of, but I don't know where to find this information. But I'm generally aware that somewhere you can look into like the popularity of hashtags and do some research on which ones are performing strong versus ones that perhaps aren't followed as much. Like where can you find out that information so you're utilizing the right hashtags that might bring more eyeballs to your content?
Yeah, Caitlin, that's a great question. Instagram will tell you the quantity for each hashtag. If you start to type one in, it will suggest them, and then it will give you like 2,000 or 20 or 2. And so you can look at the count right there to see what is used the most. And there are a couple of things to consider with that specifically. If there are 2,000, you're like, oh my gosh, I need to be in that area. I need to play in that space. But how are you going to be found? Because if there are 2,000 posts that people have to scroll through, it may be better to go with the one that has just 200 or even 2. Maybe you want to start a hashtag and really create and own a new space. So it's going to take a while for it to build up in popularity, but it could be that you're like, I'm going to own that keyword. So there's some strategy built into that. LinkedIn doesn't give you those counts. As you start to type with the hashtag symbol, it will suggest words and it will show the most popular at the top. So that's kind of how they rank it. There's some different tools like some of the SEO tools. You can just Google SEO keywords and you can see what keywords are popular. And it kind of plays into the social sites as well. That's a great question. All right. Thank you, Natalie. Jeff, what's a It's a legit way to gain more followers on Instagram. I still think social media is all about being social. It's about reciprocity. So if somebody follows you, I would follow them back. And you can also, Alicia, she's one of the entrepreneurs locally. She will send any new followers a DM on Instagram to say, hey, I'm putting the social back in social. That's what she says. And she'll just connect with them and say, thank you for following me. And people are like, oh my gosh, she took this brand, took the time to connect with me one-on-one. So that is one way. I really like her approach, Jeff. You might try that if you aren't currently doing that. It's a great question.
And to piggyback on Jeff's question, so I know on Instagram, you have the posts that you put on your grid, you have stories, you have reels. Is Instagram like prioritizing one of those three different types of, I guess, content material over others? Like, what I'm trying to say is, like, if Instagram sees that you're posting reels, does, in lack of a better word, does Instagram really like reels? Therefore, it will push your content up above other, perhaps like posts to the grid that people would see?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know the answer to that specifically. I know stories, if you use the stories function on Facebook too, it will pop that to the top of the feed and it won't get lost in the feed. So that's one way to increase visibility, is to use those stories. So the little circles at the top, those people are getting a lot more visibility than those who are doing a regular post. We do know that video is highly popular, so reels are going to be watched a lot, and you can go from one reel to the next. It's kind of that they'll feed you another one. So it'll give you a chance to be in a couple different medium within that platform. Danietta is saying, yes, Instagram is no longer a photo sharing app. They are now video to compete with TikTok. Yep, absolutely. Okay, to recap the 5 social media tips today: post often, use visuals, tell your why, ask a question, and leverage those hashtags. So, question for you all. What's one new thing you're going to start doing today? And we didn't even talk about TikTok, so bonus points if it's a dance sequence. All right, I'd love to hear your thoughts in chat. Yeah, Jeff, tell her why. Absolutely. Create that connection. Try the LinkedIn video headshot. Julianne, I love it. Get on LinkedIn to not it. Yep. Tara, be more consistent, creating a plan. Yep, absolutely. Luann, better leverage hashtags. Lauren, fill in the blank questions. Check out Hootsuite. Yeah. Getting more professional on LinkedIn. Veronica, thank you. Cassie, schedule more interactive posts in advance. Yeah, save yourself some time. Charlotte started sharing videos on Facebook. I'll start putting them on IG and LinkedIn too. Yeah, see what works, especially on LinkedIn. Videos, they're not that many, so it would stand out at this point. Yep. Go ahead and experiment there. This is great. I love these tips that you all have shared today. Thank you. And great questions, because it's created an even deeper dialogue. So we got more into the content that we might not have otherwise. So thank you for doing that. Okay, I would love for you to connect with me on LinkedIn. I've just written a book. I teach marketing for nonprofits at UNCG. And so I've just written a book for marketing for nonprofits. And a lot of these tips I pulled from that book. And I would love for you to follow me on LinkedIn. I talk about marketing, career, family, parenting. I kind of, whatever sort of suits me that day. I share a lot of other people's content. So I would love for y'all to reach out. We've got a comment in the chat. Stephanie, where can we get a copy of your book? Yeah, so if you will reach out to me on LinkedIn, I will connect with you. I love that question. Thank you. All right, we are going to pause stop the recording, and we're going to